Good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Mantz, and I'm so excited to moderate today's press conference for Gladiator II. The movie opens officially this Friday, November 22nd, but it is actually in theaters on Thursday night for preview screenings on November 21st. I am very, very excited to be here starting off this press conference for Gladiator II with Director Sir Ridley Scott. Please give a big welcome to Sir Ridley Scott, ladies and gentlemen. So the first question for you, Ridley, is I know you've been wanting to do a sequel to Gladiator for more than 20 years or so, but here we are. What was it about the screenplay that you finally figured out how to crack the story?
Let me first of all say I didn't sit for 25 years agonizing over Gladiator II, because I think that time I made 20 movies in the last 20 years. So I make a movie a year, so that's the first answer. But the original film, would not go away. It created a life of its own. And then it started to get very global with all the platforms. And clearly it spelled itself out that we must have a sequel. That's the reason why, and why not, yeah? And then when you examine that and you sit around a table with my fellow producers and say, what are we going to do? We examine the facts of who's alive. Well, there's Connie, the mother, is alive, Lucilla. And the son, mysteriously, in the first one, just disappeared. And so he seemed to be the first target. Once you get that, writing a screenplay is exactly the same as writing a book. You get all the components. But everyone writes differently. You can start in the first page, you just finish, go all the way to page 200. On a screenplay, you can do components and lay it out on the table, a bit like a Lego kit. So you're fundamentally working a skeleton before you put the fat and the flesh on the story.
So because it is, so the first film movie obviously came out May of 2000. Here we are in November of 2024. So in a nutshell, Ridley, I wonder if you could tell us what were some of the visual effects, things you were able to do on Gladiator II that you just were not able to do on Gladiator I?
VS, visual effects, have been around with us for quite a long time. So on Glad 1, it was already pretty sophisticated. I could have done the rhino then. I may have had a hard time doing the baboons because of literally the technical thing of doing fur. It became better and cleverer over the last 20 years. But the very first shot of Glad 1, they come out the ground in the arena, and I've built 40% full scale then. But the camera, Steadicam, so not on a rail, not on a monorail, which is registering, a Steadicam moves around and does a 360. We put all the rest of the stadium in visual effects. That tells you everything, doesn't it? Pretty sophisticated then.
Okay, so we are going to just jump right in and start taking questions from our Golden Globe members and our Critics' Choice members here. Going to start with Sylvia Bizio from Sylvia. Do you have the mic?
Thank you. Should I wait for the mic?
Wait, there you go. There's your mic.
Guy, can you turn the light? I'm blinded by the light. Just turn that light, just swing it. Yep. Yeah. The big one.
I actually wanted to, the director.
Keep going. There, thank you. Jeez. Good.
I'm Silvia from Italy. Hi.
Now I can see you.
Yes, thank you. Actually, my question follows up exactly what you were talking about, because many decades ago, you were doing, I wonder how much has the world of visual effects has changed for you from when you did Alien with Carlo Rambaldi, and the effects were actually physical, as opposed to creating them in a computer. Artistically, how does it work for you?
Worse than that, more than that, Blade Runner, there were no visual effects. And Legend, there were no visual effects. So I have to do the forest live, I have to build the forest. And it's all live. And I think visual effects began really to kick in for me quite late. Even I did probably never once saw a film called 1492, which is one of my favorite films with Gerard. There's no visual effects, except I think there's a beginning of a storm. So it's very late before I started using visual effects.
Okay, next question. Anke Hoffman. Anke, take it away. What is your question, Anke?
Sir Ridley, pleasure to see you again, and advanced happy birthday. I heard you're gonna have one next
Nearly.
week. So, would like to, you do so many things incredibly well, stories, visual effects, and the other thing is I really love how you bring in great, strong adversaries, because I think heroes need great adversaries in order to be really great heroes. Can you address a little bit how you came up with this adversary in Gladiator II?
Well, he's a very powerful individual. Naturally, that's his nature, that's who he is. And I had a pretty great experience with him doing a film called American Gangster, and has to go down as one of my better films. I think maybe his as well. I think he probably conceded that because I was right in that territory, and he was kind of quite protective of me. He kept saying, "You okay?" I said, "Of course I'm okay." But I think Denzel is formidable character and probably the best actor we've got.
On that note, Sir Ridley, you had already worked with Denzel on American Gangster that came out in 2007. What was it about his performance in Gladiator II that surprised you, even after already working with him?
And the way he fussed with the silk. He kept doing this and doing that. And I thought, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
It's got to be something. Next question is from Lena Bass, Golden Globe member. Lena?
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
The Gladiator II is a true epic in every possible sense. And I have a very simple question. What are you most proud of? And if there will be Gladiator III, actually.
Given the performance in the rest of the world we received yesterday, there's certainly going to be a Gladiator III. So that answers that question, because it also becomes financial, and you'd be insane not to consider the third version. And this film was planned to leave it wide open to a sequel with the lines, "Well, Father, what should I do?" Because he doesn't really want the job. It's a bit like going in on The Godfather, Al Pacino not wanting the role that he has to concede to. So in a funny kind of way, I kind of stole that a little bit off Godfather. Thank you, Francis.
And Paul Mescal would be down for that as well.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? Oh, go ahead, Lily.
Hi, good morning. Pre-happy birthday, sir.
Thank you.
A little bit
It's the
follow-up.
30th of November.
Sagittarius.
Anyways, happy birthday.
You want to hear how schools have changed?
Let's hear it.
When I was at grammar school, no, I didn't make grammar school. I made secondary modern, which means definitely substandard. And at the school, the day was 30th of November, and the master was standing very close to me. He said, "Today, whose birthday is it, boys?" And I waited. "Come on, whose birthday is it?" And I said, "Mine, sir." And he slapped my head. There were no police. There were no psychologists. That's the way it was.
It's so nice to interview you again, sir, today, and congratulations. I want to follow up a little bit on Leonard's question. Usually, we waited for 20 years for Gladiator II, and now we are looking forward to Gladiator III.
No,
And
you can't say that yet. Who knows? I may not make it till Christmas.
Oh, don't say that.
Can you explain that? Okay, for this one, because during the Q&A, we got to learn from Connie that you love technology and you're not afraid of it, to use it. So can you talk a little bit more about how creating all those wonderful scenes in Gladiator II using technology, please?
The one thing that I learned the most of in my early years was I went to art school. And I've noticed that children, teens, don't have the patience to do that today, because this is the monster. And I like to see kids go climb a tree, fall out the tree, break their leg, and all that stuff, and learn a little bit about the physicality of living and enjoying your life without this bloody thing. Okay, but at the same time, this thing is a magical thing as well. It's incredibly useful. As a child, I had no technology in my life whatsoever, and at the end of my very bad education, I was very badly I wasn't badly taught. I was a terrible student. I was in denial of learning anything, except I would draw incessantly from very early age of 5, 6 years old. So I was already doing paintings, quite large paintings by the time I was 12. So my only career could possibly be go to art school and maybe become an art teacher. And I went to an art school in north of England called West Hartlepool. And West Hartlepool College of Art, I can probably owe everything to I learned there I use every day now. Because I learned to draw and paint there. Later I went on to the Royal College of Art with people like David Hockney and people like that. But I think I learned more at Hartlepool, which was a 4-year course. Royal College was 3 years, so 7 years in art school, as long as a doctor's training. Most kids haven't got the patience for that, but I adored it. And because I can really draw and really paint, I draw all my own storyboards for the film. So let's say a storyboard on Gladiator is this thick. Taschen are doing a book this coming year only on my boards for Alien. My boards for Alien changed the budget from 4.2 to 8.4 when the studio saw it. So they saw a vision. So that means I'm fortunate and blessed with an eye and a hand, a practice hand with drawing. So I literally film on paper in my head through to my hand before I even get there.
Thanks very much for the question. Okay, so the next question is coming to us virtually from Golden Globe member Jason Rapier. And Jason's question is this. Wanted to ask about the stunt coordination. The bar from great stunts is different nowadays. Is there anything about the fight scene in this movie that you wanted to capture or challenge yourself with?
Yeah, I mean, most fight scenes done today, you'd never get up from one of those punches. It's kind of ridiculous. And when he's hit 19 times, you'd probably be dead. So I like to keep my fight scenes, as I did in Black Hawk Down, real. And the key is to be, when you start using visual effects to survive an explosion, which would be frankly impossible, you have no skin left on your body, I like to try and keep it as real as possible. And so it was carried out, honestly, through Napoleon a year ago. There's some big battle scenes, huge battle scenes there. Same stunt lady and her coordinators I then carried forward onto Gladiator. And even to do the hardest thing to do was the combination of visual effects and what do you do when you're going to be attacked by a baboon? And a baboon I saw when I was doing a pilot in South Africa 18 months ago, and I saw in a car park, there's people getting coffee and they're parking the cars, and then suddenly 12 baboons appeared on the wall looking cute. You do not go near a baboon. He is carnivorous, and he may only weigh 40 to 50 pounds, but he'd pull your goddamn arm off, right? Could you hang from a ceiling for 2 hours by one? I don't think so. So I saw it attack a big guy who dropped his cup and ran for the car. The baboon fastened on his leg, and he just got in the car and closed the door. The baboon then rocked the car. This baboon had alopecia, no hair. So I modeled my leading baboon on that alopecia baboon. But to get a transposition of how do an actor wrestle with a baboon, you've got to have him wrestle with somebody who will give an opponent. And so baboons are small, so I had to cast teen stunt kids who can really put up a ferocious fight, and as small stuntmen as possible, to take all the actors through the ferocious battle encounter between the animal and the man. Then during this, they cleverly remove these little stunt guys in their black tights. And now I have the actor with all his movement in there. They would then put in a wireframe, which is a visual effect wireframe. I said, that's good, the movement is good. Then they start adding flesh, and then they start fur. If you understand that, you better man that.
Don't mess with those baboons in Gladiator II, I'll tell you. All right, next question is from Danielle, Golden Globe member. And here you go. What's your question?
Hello, Mr. Scott. Earlier this year, a lot of women on social media found out that a lot of men actually think about the Roman Empire every single day. It was a thing.
You won. I agree. You win.
But have you in the last 20 years thought about the Roman Empire every single day? And more seriously, what is it about that time frame that is so fascinating?
Never thought about it once because I was busy. I was busy doing Black Hawk Down. So every now and again, I thought, what are we going to do? Because the visual empire is a feast of extreme behavior. Probably you could put it down the same book as the worst possible conditions of history. Right now, we're not going to go political. I'm not going to get political. We are witnessing now as bad as it gets. Right? So the Roman Empire, we forget, we enjoy as a Hollywood movie, but they did that for fun, like watching a soccer match, having a family devoured by a lion. That ain't funny. So I try and keep this side of the cosmetic nature when I'm telling a story, which is a romantic view of a gladiator in Rome. But Rome was truly evil.
What about the room with the sharks when you had the water and how did that scene come about?
Well, the Romans were excellent technologically and archaeologically. Archaeology and concrete is technology. Their concrete then is better than the concrete we can mix today. We can't quite work out what that is.
Wow.
Have you noticed when somebody does some concrete in your house, it always comes apart within about 10 months? On the Appian Way, which is 1,000 years old, it hasn't moved yet. So they knew something we didn't know. And carrying water on aqueducts. There'd be at least many aqueducts leading right into the Colosseum because they'd worry about bathrooms, cleaning, and then, of course, filling the arena with water, in which they would certainly put moray eels.
Wow.
So you'd have 6, 7 feet of water in there, just enough to drown in. If you fell overboard, you have a moray eel coming after you. And if you can build the arena that size and Rome like that, you mean you can't get a shark in a net? I'm sorry, I don't believe it. They could have sharks in that.
Wow. All right, next question is from Gilda. Gilda, right here. Nice.
Hi. We are living now in a world with a lot of power fights and a lot of power wars. How does the sequel expand on the reimagine the themes of power, revenge, and legacy that were explored in the original?
Where are you from?
Mexico City.
Okay. So, you've experienced enough violence like every other country in the world. So we don't learn historically anything. We keep repeating the same mistakes. We're going through exactly the same thing right now in several parts of the planet. I'm not going to go any further, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
But in the movie I meant, how does it expand reimagining the themes of power and revenge?
The same. They're exactly the same.
Okay.
A super rich man thinks he can take over the empire. Is that familiar? Okay. Sorry. Do
All
not
right.
quote me.
Next question from Mario. Mario, take it away.
Hi, Sir Ridley Scott. I'm also from Mexico. I would like to ask you if we put together Russell Crowe's character, Maximus, and Paul Mescal, it can be, I feel like an evolution about maybe this is more a sensitive man, a man of this time, because from the first movie to this one, it's just the 20th century, first century happened. So I would like to ask you if...
I've lost you there. Do you
understand? In which way you approach this new gladiator as the macho figure that maybe Russell Crowe has in the first one?
They're two quite different people from quite different positions in their lives. Russell Crowe, remember, when Marcus Aurelius ruled, I think he hadn't been home for 17 years.
That's right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's why, I would say one good reason why Commodus was pretty damaged. He never saw his father. And so when his father said, we're going to actually, we're more or less accurate, he offered a regent's position to somebody else, and his son was clearly devastated. Whether his son killed his father, Marcus Aurelius, or not, we're not sure. We don't know. You have to cheat a little sometimes with history because this is not a documentary, it's a drama. And I think you cheat a little here and there because, for instance, the twins Karakara and Geta existed, and they came out of the father who had been the leader, the king of the emperor of Rome, who actually had died at 70, so he wasn't murdered. So his sons obviously respected him, but there were seriously damaged goods. The two boys certainly. Russell Crowe had been probably absconded into the Roman army, because when the Rome took over Spain, they'd say, you're coming in the army. He embraced that, became a general in the army, and a favorite general of Marcus Aurelius. And so he evolved into that. So he's a farmer. The other boy is royalty, who got lost in the wilderness and hid in the wilderness.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for joining us for this portion of our Gladiator II press conference with Ridley Scott. Sir Ridley Scott. The movie opens Friday. Please stick around, and we will be back in a moment with Paul Mescal. All right, follow me. And welcome back, everybody. We are continuing our press conference for Gladiator II, which opens Friday, actually Thursday night previews. This is the week.
Yeah.
I'm here with Paul Mescal, Academy Award nominee for After Sun. So, Paul, I got to ask, the first question I have for you is, going from All the Strangers and After Sun to a movie on the scope of Gladiator II, what was it like for you? The very first scene that you shot,
Yeah.
and Sir Ridley Scott calls action.
It probably goes how you imagine it does. Like, Ridley doesn't wait around. So I think Ridley was pretty conscious with the fact that he wanted to start with a bang, just to kind of let me know what we were stepping into. So the first day was, I don't know if you've all seen the film, but it was the opening sequence in Morocco, the battle sequence. And apologies if you've heard this story before, but for those of you that haven't, we were kind of, the key cast were kept out in little holding tents. And I was like walking around with my sword, furiously smoking and waiting to be summoned to the set. And then we hear over the radio that Ridley Scott's coming to say hello, so we're waiting in the tent, and he comes in and he's smoking a cigar. And he looks at us and he goes, "Are you nervous?" And I wasn't really sure what the appropriate response was, so I think I just made a noise. And he just he just went whack on my back and goes, "Your nerves are no fucking good to me." Proceeds to go turn over the cameras, so we're walking onto the set, and that's when I saw the scale for the first time. So the first time I saw what we were dealing with was being recorded. And it's in the film. So yeah, that was the first day. But I think, aside from the kind of novelty of that story, it's a clever piece of direction for him to go, "We're not waiting around for you to build into this. This is where you're going to live now for the next however many days that we're going to be shooting it." So I was really grateful for that kind of piece of direction from him.
That really informed how you're going to make the film from that point forward, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it informed, it kind of explained everything that I had my suspicions of with Ridley, was that's like, the scale is the scale, and you're going to be confronted with it on day one, and that's his wheelhouse. They're the worlds that he builds. So I'm glad that we didn't do, say, kind of quieter interiors or anything like that to begin with, because that's, as you said, with something like After Sun or All of Us Strangers, that's more familiar territory. That very much is not. Yeah.
Well, and away we go, as they say, right?
Absolutely.
So away we go with questions from Golden Globe members and Critics' Choice members. First question here is from Scott Orwin from the Golden Globe. Scott, take it away.
Hi, Scott.
Paul, great
How's
to
it
see
going?
you, sir. Ridley kind of dropped a little seed that he would like to make a third one.
He has, hasn't he? He's been talking about it quite a bit.
Right, that you would be an integral part. Where would you like to see this character go? And also in the future, as we're talking about future films, you are in the process of making one that is going to take 20 years. You're doing Merrily We Roll Along.
Yeah.
How has that process just been, really, in a broad stroke?
In broad strokes, to begin with with Merrily, we go and we shoot another section of it this December. But as Richard puts it, it's like it's a series of short films with friends over 20 years. Like, and it very much feels like that. We shoot it for maximum about a week every X amount of years. That it's broken down, and if anybody's familiar with the musical, there's like very specific year gaps. So we observe those spaces. So I think after this year we have 5 years off, which is a really strange experience. But he made a great point that the less we talk about it, the more we'll be able to talk about it in 15 years, which I think is the benefit that I think he had when he was making Boyhood, which I don't think we have at the moment because people know about it. But I think when Rick was making Boyhood, nobody really knew about it. So I think we're trying to protect the working process of that as much as possible. And your Gladiator 3, where do we want to go? Where do I want to? I think Ridley's made a point of, like, I don't know necessarily if you can go back to the arena as we know it. And the last time I spoke to him, he said he had 9 pages. Yesterday, he said he had 14. So I think he's moving in a direction that I'm excited with. I haven't spoken to him about what that looks like, but I would be excited for it to go into a more political sphere, or kind of in the world of like Michael Corleone and Gladiator II, something like somebody stepping into something that they don't necessarily feel like it belongs to them. Because I think when you see Lucius at the end of the first film, he's looking for guidance. Like, he's, as much as he's a reluctant leader throughout the film, I think that's even an overstatement. I think he has no desire to lead until the point that he's kind of thrust upon him. And I think that you could draw parallels of that with something like Godfather Part 2.
That's a great arc, by the way.
I mean, famously, it's a great,
for sure, for sure. Next question is from Maria Estevez. Maria, what's your question?
How are you?
How are you?
I don't want to just be reductionist or objective, but we cannot overlook the fact that this is a movie that people, you and Pedro Pascal, are fighting, and people are just going to the movie theater like just to go to see you fighting Charlottes. Is that something that you expected, that it was going to be a trend?
No. No.
How do you feel about being seeing you under the feminine guys?
I mean, that's not, that perspective is essentially none of my business. And I think if you go down the avenue of becoming stressed or concerned with, like, if female gays are being objectivized, you just wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. But to your point, whatever gets people into the movie theater, happy days. But if you come for the shirtless fighting, stay for the Ridley Scott film. Whatever. Yeah.
This really is a movie with a capital M. I mean, it's everything about it is made for the big screen. And even Ridley himself had said that this was the most epic and challenging film he ever made.
I mean, have you had Ridley in this morning?
Yeah, we just had.
I mean, I've said this before in interviews, but the fact that man, and he hates talking about his age, and I totally get it because he feels younger to me than myself.
Yeah.
Like, he could be the most entitled director, creative in the world, and I've never come across somebody with an appetite for work to the same extent that he does. He doesn't rest. He doesn't kind of thing that I find so that I've such admiration for him with is the fact that he doesn't really care at all about legacy. He wants to make films. He feels like it's the greatest privilege to make a film, so he doesn't want to protect anything. In fact, he just wants to accelerate, you know? And I think that that's a real testament to who he is, and it kind of lets you know how little fear he has.
The way he could go from Napoleon to Gladiator II is crazy.
This is the guy who directed Thelma and Louise.
Yes, exactly.
You know, that's my favorite of his films. But I'm in awe of him.
Next question is from Margaret Gardner. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
Good to see you.
How's it going?
You know, when we talk to actors, we hear that the lead sets the tone for the film. But you're on the set with Denzel Washington and Ridley Scott. So could you talk about how comfortable you are with leadership?
Yeah.
Because that's your character. And then also what it was like to be with these personalities.
How long do we have? I think, weirdly, I find the act of leading a film, or, like, I grew up playing sport and I was, like, a captain for my school football team, so that kind of position isn't alien to me. It's magnified by 100 when you're on a Ridley Scott set, but I was aware when I was going in that to lead a set is, like, actually a very practical thing. It's something that you can control it has nothing to do with talent. Leading a film in terms of being in that position of leadership has nothing to do with talent. It has to do with attitude. It has to be, you have to be the person who's there first in the morning. You're the person that's going to, if you feel like setups are taking longer, it's practical things. It's like, don't wait in your trailer, get in front of the camera, because the minute an actor's in front of a camera and waiting, everything just goes way faster.
Yeah.
And those are things that I've learned from like great actors like Emily Watson and people like that, where it's like, you've got to take up the space that you want to occupy. And sometimes there's a bit of like faking it till you make it. But that part of it is, thankfully, whatever I've learned through Gaelic football and sport was applicable there. It's one of the few things I would say is applicable. And then working with Denzel and Ridley, I mean, in an acting context with Denzel, the thing that I found so inspiring and kind of relaxing was that he's not reinventing the wheel. He's not doing anything other, like he's got this extraordinary talent, but it's not like he's having a special breakfast in the morning or doing something or injecting himself with like acting magic or anything. He's just going to work on a very, very practical level and informing the role that he's playing with all of the experience that he's had before. Like my acting coach in drama school always said, regardless of your talent, experience trumps all. The most important actor in a company is the one that has the most experience. And I just found it really calming to go like, oh, the reason he's great is A, because of his talent, but B, purely the amount of time that he has spent doing this job. So that like ultimately that was, I just found that like when I was watching, I was like, oh, this is so exciting, because hopefully when I'm in my late 60s, that will just like it will just become easier. It'll just become more comfortable. Yeah.
But you know, when you're watching his movies, just
Yeah.
as a movie fan, whether it's Glory, Training Day, so on, American Gangster that he did with Ridley.
Yeah.
So you're watching his performances, and you're as an actor learning from what you're seeing on the screen, but then you're working with him.
Yeah.
So then you're working in a scene with him. He's right there with you. So what, as an actor, did you pick up from him? What impressed you about Denzel, the actor, from the process?
He's very focused. He is somebody who, I've never worked with an actor who brings the level of intensity to a set that he does, because I think that's a way that he likes to operate. And I think for a film like Gladiator II, and especially, I think there's two parts. There's many parts to Denzel's performance, but there's two parts that I think are pretty distinct in the film. That's his relationship to the political world that he's manipulating, and that's quite Machiavellian and kind of light and dexterous. But he doesn't have to play those things with me, because I'm his subject.
Right.
He's not trying to manipulate me. I'm totally in his control, or so it seems. So I had a very kind of like, how would I describe it? Like, it was a pretty intense working relationship in the best sense, because there was no kind of obvious manipulations that was happening. So it was these two, do you know what I mean? Like, he's not trying to kind of dance around the subject with Lucius because he's got him in a cell.
Yeah.
He's got him exactly where he wants him. So I loved the kind of, and then the further we got into the shoot, the more like, because Denzel works in the theater, so we would like privately go off and rehearse little scenes outside of the watchful command of Ridley, because that's the way that feels familiar to us. Like, coming from the theater, you rehearse, and I think I mean, any time that you're one-on-one, even when the cameras aren't rolling with Denzel and you're getting to rehearse a scene, is a pretty special day.
Pretty special, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next question, Frederica.
Yeah.
Take it away, Frederica.
Hi. So first of all, because I read something about it, if you can tell us a little bit that first phone call with Ridley Scott telling you, "I want you" in Gladiator II.
Yeah.
When he hangs up, what happens? What's your reaction?
Well, I wish it was from Ridley, but the way these things work, it's like it's a phone call from your agents.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, I think you always kind of get an inkling about where you kind of know before you're told. Your agents will be able to tell you in kind words if it's not happening or if it is happening. And I was kind of under the impression that we were moving in the right direction. I was doing Streetcar Named Desire in London at the time, and I was walking to the theatre. I got a phone call from my agents, and I just remember screaming. But the weird feeling was like, I remember coming into my earphones, and I was like, there's only about 10 people in the world probably who have this information now. And then I knew that and they're those weird moments that you can never really telegraph are going to be so important in your life, because I think within 2 weeks then it's public consumption, it's public knowledge. But for that 2 weeks, it was just information for me and my family and my loved ones. But that dissipates as quickly as it comes, because then you're like, okay, so we've got X amount of months to go to the gym. We've got X amount of months to kind of prepare it. I've got a play to finish. What the fuck am I gonna do? It becomes practical information as soon as it's kind of emotional information.
Thanks so much for the question. Next question is coming from us virtually from Yenny Nuncats, who asks, in a nutshell, what was your experience working with Pedro Pascal?
So Pedro was we essentially landed in Morocco before any of the rest of the central cast, and I mean, I don't know if you've met Pedro or
yes,
yeah,
I have.
I mean,
Yep.
the way that the thing that I'm kind of in awe with him about is the fact that the person that the world, which is such a specific skill, but the person that the world meets in kind of a press context or on a red carpet or in this kind of like the merry-go-round of promoting a film is the person that I know. Like he's got an extraordinarily open heart, and in that moment there would have been nobody that I would want to be around more as I was stepping into so unfamiliar territory. And I honestly wish I had more to do with him in the film. You know, we have very little screen time together, but having said that, the fight in the Colosseum and the moments that follow the fight were some of my favorite moments to shoot in the film, because he's got such a kind of empathetic energy, and I'd argue that his character is arguably the more kind of archetypal hero in the film. Like he's got that conscience that is burning for him the whole way through, and I think he plays it with such elegance and grace.
He's got great range.
Yeah.
The unbearable weight of massive talent.
Yeah,
Excellent film. Next question, Wakako Rollinger. Hi.
Hi there. How
Good
are
to
you?
see you.
Welcome back from Japan.
Hi.
I've read somewhere that you gained 22 pounds for the film, and then you have to lose 26 pounds.
Way harder doing that, let me tell you.
It must be really hard. What was the most challenging part but the fun part to shoot this film?
I think like every actor's experience with this kind of like putting weight on for a film and losing it is so specific to the actor, right? And I think, again, growing up playing sport, being in a gym wasn't unfamiliar territory. But I think the way the strike panned out, it was keeping all of that muscle on. And then I went to shoot History of Sound directly afterwards. So there would have been, say, 4 or 5 months. And then we had 7 weeks to lose. I had to lose 10 kilos. So actually the last 2 weeks of the Gladiator shoot, instead of like lifting weights, my poor trainer saw the worst of me, because you're on a treadmill for an hour and a half and you've no energy. So I was not in the best form, let's say, for the last 2 weeks of the Gladiator shoot. But that honest answer, that was the hardest part of it. And the fun part was like, I saw more of my trainer than I did my own family all of last year, like sincerely. And it's a weird, you don't realize as an actor, or I didn't realize before this, that like people like that as part of your team are so important, because it's not about the end product. It's about the fact that they have to know you fundamentally. They have to know like when to say no, that you actually need to go to say, you have to just trust them fundamentally. And I found one of the good guys in Tim Blakely who trained me for this.
So I'm just curious, you're talking about like the weight that you had to gain, the weight you had to lose, then there's the craft of the actual performance.
Yeah.
But before you get to all that, how do you remember your lines?
Really?
Yeah.
How do I remember my lines? Thankfully, that's an easy thing. I think it's I don't know. I just read the script a lot. I don't actually do a thing of like sitting down and kind of going. I absorb it through reading. Yeah.
You should ask Pedro Pascal
How he remembers
his lines.
How does he remember
It's
his
like
lines?
some weird Rain Man stuff he's
Okay,
got going
okay.
on. All right,
Yeah.
Mary Glass, what's your question?
Hi. It was mentioned earlier today that last year there was a social media trend where it was discovered that men spend an awful lot of time thinking about the Roman Empire.
I know.
So my question is, were you one of those guys, and why do you think men in particular are so fascinated by these empire?
Gladiator 1. No, but honestly, I think that film brought ancient history back into the kind of cultural zeitgeist in a way that it hadn't been for so long. Like, I know that's 20 odd years ago now, or 24 years ago, but I don't know, I loved history in school. I had a fantastic history teacher, and we used to do these like speed round games where we would all line up in the middle of the class like 1v1, and he would ask you questions on ancient Roman history, and you'd have to answer the quickest. So that in my head, whenever I think about the Roman Empire, I think about like first year history class with Mr. O'Donnell, who was my teacher. Yeah.
Why do you think men in general are so fascinated?
Because I think it's a really fascinating part of history. I think I can only speak for myself, but I think there's something fascinating about the fact that you could argue that they're the birth of modern civilization in a certain context, and the fact that what you're seeing in the film, for example, and that's like a portion of Roman history, isn't really far away from the world we're living in now politically. So that the fact that we're drawn to it, I don't think it's just men, but the joke being that men are obsessed with the Roman Empire and all of that. I don't have a proper answer on it other than the fact that I think it's really informing that history is essentially has been repeating itself since that point, and probably before that.
They were huge. They were they lasted a long time, and they made roads.
They made roads, and Ridley says that the concrete that they make, or the thing, like he said something in a press conference the other day that we still aren't able to make concrete the way that they were able to make it back then. They're still trying to sample it, that they don't know exactly why those roads have lasted 2,000 plus years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Sylvia Natoli.
Hi.
So I wanted to ask you, because you've done theater, you've done TV, you've done movies. How was Ridley's method specifically different in directing you? Because he's very known to be in the moment, to not do many takes.
Yeah.
Was it easier? Was it hard?
It was like no other experience that I've had in front of camera. It was way more familiar to me in actually a theatrical context. It felt like it couldn't have been further away from the way Andrew Haigh works, or Charlotte Wells, or Oliver Hermanas. And part of that difference was the joy on this. It's like, you never want to get, I think comfort for an actor is death. So the fact that I know generally now how an independent single camera shoot works, I know what the rhythm of that is. So to go in for to a Ridley film, I was like, I don't have a clue what this rhythm is. So you're just kind of, it brings you back to your instincts. It brings you back to that feeling of like being in drama school and not knowing if you can act. That feeling of like, Ridley always talks about putting actors and his creatives on thin ice consciously, which I think is a really useful place to put yourself from time to time. But the only thing that I could rely on was the fact that it felt like being in like week 3 of a rehearsal room every day, where you've got the lines and everything under you. But the way that he shoots is like, you're not kind of trying to modulate between a wide shot, a medium, and a close-up, because he's shooting them all at the same time. So you're not worried about continuity, because you know that if you change it, it's all going to be picked up again on all the different versions of the coverage that he's shooting in one setup. So that's really freeing. But I think the thing that I enjoyed most about it was probably the discomfort, and I would like happily jump back into a film with him again at some point.
Thanks very much for the question, and thank you for that answer. Next question is from Rick Hogg. Rick, take it away.
Paul,
Hey,
congratulations.
how's it going?
So I'm just going to ask you the American Bro question.
Let's go.
Push, pull, legs.
Push, pull, legs.
Yeah, so like putting on the weight,
Yeah.
muscle and everything. Did you find that helpful for your choreography, like holding the swords, a shield, pulling the bow and arrow? And then I also read about your trainer saying that you didn't lie to him and said, I need to have a pint or a smoke every now and then. So what was the drink?
The drink was whatever I could get my hands on. But the thing with that is like, if Tim had turned around to me and said, you can't do any of those things, I would have listened to him. It was just kind of me setting out the things that I think everything's got to be in moderation. It's like all of these things, it's like then it stops being an enjoyable experience. But in terms of, I wasn't thinking when I was lifting weights that this is going to be great when I have to pull a bow and arrow. But the act of being in a gym and putting on muscle changes the way that you move physically. It gets into your psychology, which was the most interesting thing to me, where I was like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this, I'm putting this muscle on so that I can realistically tell an audience that this person can cause physical damage to another human being, which is a weird place to put your brain, but I found that that was the most informative part about the training process, because I suddenly, you start kind of walking, like, it changes what, maybe like hormonally or something, you're just kind of ready to fight the whole time.
Okay, we have another in-person question here from Eric Anderson. Eric?
Hey, Eric.
Hello, Paul.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good.
I want to ask you about the movie in the context of your life before you became an actor, both how much Gaelic football helped with the stunts, but also as a growing up watching this movie with your father, and now he's watching you.
It's kind of like there's an emotionality to that question. I think I never, like, I don't know, you've kind of been across every moment of my career, so it's like not every junction that I feel like I've been talking about, I struggle with kind of sounding disingenuous to myself, because I'm constantly surprised by what's happened. Like 2 years ago, it was an Oscar nomination. Last year it was playing in Streetcar. This year it's Gladiator II. And the fact that, not just my father, but the fact that my family were at a royal premiere on Wednesday and their son is leading the film isn't lost on me. But there's this weird thing that I have to be honest about. Is it's like, I want the next thing. You know, I don't know where I learned that, but it's always been something that I can enjoy very, not for a huge length of time. I think like in 10 years' time, I'll look back on especially these last 3 years, like in terms of what's gone on in my personal life and what's gone on in my professional life, and be like, you're doing well to put one foot in front of the other, if I'm being honest. But I don't have a proper answer in terms of what that actually means to me, other than the fact that I can see from the people around me that it's been a really special time. And of course you get little glimpses of that, like you're able to kind of zoom out and be like, remember this, because this portion of my career is happening now, but I'm not under any illusion that this is going to be sustainable for 25 years, nor do I want this level of kind of, what's the word, like, to be working, the intensity, maybe this, like, to be working so much, like, while I don't have a family or any of those things, now's the time to do it. But I am also looking forward to a time that I can just, like, disappear for a little while. You know?
Last question for you. Listen, obviously you grew up with the first Gladiator film, so now you're in the second, which is a big, daunting task for many, many reasons. But really, Paul, I'm curious, like, how much of Russell Crowe's performance as Maximus informed your performance, while also being conscious to make Lucius stand separately?
Well, that's, like, I learned a lot from doing Streetcar, actually, because that's got a famous performance history, right? It's got one of those films that I seen before drama school and saw, like, studied in drama school, Marlon Brando's performance. And the minute I was cast in it, it wasn't a decision in my head. It wasn't like, do I go back and watch it? It was like instant. I was like, you can't go back and watch this. And there was a similar feeling to that with Gladiator. The Gladiator one was more complicated because I learned a lot from asking Ridley why he cast me. And the big clue that I got was that Ridley cast me because he saw normal people and Aftersun. So that immediately set me down the line of, like, he doesn't, and I mean this with the greatest sincerity, I don't want to go and do a Russell Crowe on it. Like, because that's his his wheelhouse. So I was trying to use the skills that I've learned from films that I love with all my heart in After Sun and All of Us Strangers and Normal People, and go like, if I'm going to stand behind this film in 10 years' time and be proud of it, I can tell you I'll be a hell of a lot proud of it for the work that I did, rather than trying to regurgitate a performance that was famous because of what he did. That's not my job. That's not an actor's job. That's an impression and not a craft, I think. But having said that, the screenplay is informing you everything that you need to take from Russell's performance. And his spirit lives through the film because of what he did, which is such an amazing thing for me to like consciously essentially avoid it, but for his spirit to still come through is an absolute testament to the performance that he gave. But I think I knew that those moments of kind of DNA were in the script, so if I play those, I'm letting him in, and then for the rest, I'm trying to use a performance style that I'm enjoying at the moment in films outside of something like Gladiator, and trying to bring it into Gladiator II. Scary thing.
Definitely scary.
But it's
I
think it was my only avenue to approach it with.
But I think I could speak for everyone in the room and everyone watching virtually when I say bravo to you for your performance. Gladiator II. Opens Friday. Thanks so much, Paul Mescal. And we are going to be back in a bit with Connie Nielsen.
Thank you all very much for coming out this morning. Thank you.
And we are continuing our press conference for Gladiator II, which opens Friday, actually Thursday night previews. That's how we roll these days. Join now, returning to Rome, back with Ridley Scott. Gladiator II with Connie Nielsen. Welcome back. How excited were you the day that you were all on your first day on the set, shooting your first scene? You're all in costume, hair and makeup and everything. What did that feel like to be back at that point and to once again work with Sir Ridley Scott?
I mean, the whole process prior to that was like an amazing process, first of all, because the process of getting into Lucilla, who was like, you know, all my characters feel like they're like my old girlfriends. and so this time was like this old girlfriend that I haven't seen for 25 years. But you all know what it's like when it's a really good friend, because it's like you fall right into a conversation like nothing happened, like no time had passed at all, right? And it was like that. And one of my favorite things, I think everyone who knows me knows that research is my absolute favorite thing. And the way my work process is that I take everything that I can know about the culture, the context, the spirituality, all of the things that people did think about at the time, whether it's, how they felt about their neighbors, or how they felt about their forebears, or about their spouses, you know, how did we feel at the time? And then to bring all of that in and personalize it and bring it into the scenes. And so a lot of that had happened before I stepped onto that same podium. I'd also had an amazing conversation with Ridley about what he wanted to do with Lucilla this time. And you know, guys, it's a little insane because, you know, it picks up 20 years later, right, the film. And I get to actually play a character that I played when I was a young woman, and now I get to play her as a mature woman. And I think we all know that life hones you, right? And to bring to Lucilla that honed quality, that heartache and heartbreak of the fact that the world is tougher on you than you could ever imagine. In her case, she's watched as the empire that her father had brought almost to its apex, and that the three former emperors had brought into like this golden age, 80 years of a golden age of the empire, all through this idea of stoicism, we control ourselves. We don't do anything for our own ego. We do everything that we do out of duty. And I felt like, I really wanted to imbue that duty and that belief system into Lucilla. And then bring it out, because what has Lucilla seen? She's seen 20 years of the complete and utter decline of any and all of those norms, of all of those ideas. It's all gone. And what you have is this gaudy excess, this corruption, and she is a prisoner of it. She is the legitimate daughter of Marcus Aurelius. Her son, she's had to send him away to save his life, and yet there were no phones at the time, so he's gone. Like, she does not know how to find him. And they've even told her that he's dead, so she carries that as a burden on her soul. And so all of that stuff came before I even stepped into that arena. All of those feelings and thoughts, and all of that great conversation with Ridley. And then on the first day I'm there, I realized, well, Ridley is a man in a hurry. He gets shit done really fast. And I realized that, I'm going to have to have all of the conversations about the scenes prior to even getting on the stage. And this is the amazing thing about Ridley, and that hasn't changed in the past 25 years, and that is that he is a true collaborative director. It's someone who truly, truly, truly cares and expects you. He is expecting you, to a certain degree, to be a co-writer of your character. You're advocating for her. You're the one who is like having to be the warrior and fight for her integrity as a person. And so all of that came into that before, and then when I stepped into her costumes, and I stepped into her way of walking and her way of holding herself, like holding her pain. And even when she receives her husband, who is the one true joy of her life, there is always that amalgam of pain, of being imprisoned, and then it's tinged, the way life does do that to you, with like sweetness and beauty and gratitude, right? So you have like these two things that are constantly in Lucilla all the time. And I have to tell you guys, like, walking into the costumes and putting on the armbands and the tiaras was surreal and profound. And I don't want to over-actor this, because we are these crazy animals, but it was a gift. I really felt like I was given a gift by Ridley to get the chance to tell what happened to this woman once these two anchors in her life, her brother and this hope for the future that was Maximus, now those two are gone. That was a very long answer. I apologize. If I have answered
gold.
like 30 other questions, that means we can.
Yeah, we're done. We're done. Listen, that's a loaded answer, and that's exactly what we want to hear. And now we're going to turn it over to our audience today of Golden Globe members and Critics' Choice members. Tina Christensen has a question. Tina,
yes, I'm
take it away.
Hi, Connie. Hi. I was going to ask you about stepping into the costumes, how that felt like, how the sort of the set that Ridley has created, it is basically Rome that is around you. And then also, getting cast this time was not as difficult as the first time. I imagine you told me about this process that was really
arduous.
Yes. How did he call you up this time? How did you get it the second time around?
So the second time around, the producers called and asked if I would be willing to come back as Lucilla. And I'm going to be just honest and say that we were like, I don't know. Is it going to be any good? Because, we were like, how, are they going to tell the story? And the producers were like, well, we're going to send you a script, and then you're going to meet with Ridley, but I think you're going to be happy. And so when I read it, I was just like, oh, yeah, this is a great story. And, like, the situations that he sets up for me and torture that he sets up for me and for an actor, as soon as you see torture, heartache, heartbreak, you go like, ooh, yum. So, yeah, it was a really positive process. Yeah.
And the costumes and the setting?
So the costumes, it's so weird because, I think Jonty had started out like with this idea that, oh, it's a different era, the costumes are different, it's a different style. And yet once we started putting it back together, we found ourselves just thinking, well, but does Lucilla give a fuck? I don't think so. Like, she is sort of like, she's Lucilla. She doesn't care about fashion. And so we kind of like ended up slowly just doing that same drapery that you see on the statues, and also that with that extra addition that we always do with Gladiator, which is that late 19th century neoclassicism that we, that has a specific aesthetic that we brought in.
Thank you for the question. Next question is coming from my pal, Harry Medved. Harry,
hi,
fire
Connie.
away.
I'm assuming you've seen the film now with audiences already. Right?
Where are you sitting? Because I can't see
all the
you.
way in the back.
Oh,
over
there you are. Or say, yeah. I wanted
I'm
to
just
make.
curious to know, how does the experience of the big screen enhance the experience of the movie? Why do you need to see it in the movie theater?
So there's just no way that a film like this should not be seen on the big screen. It is an ode to cinema. I want to just get personal for a second here. Cinema is very special and very important to me. My experience as a child is that of knowing that my great-grandmother was running a movie theater. My great-grandfather built that theater with her. We suspect, married her, not least because she was a concert pianist, and he would get free actual music to the silent movies that were playing at the time. But also, the story goes that my grandmother was, my great-grandmother's water broke during a performance, and it was a cowboy film, and without the piano going, the galloping wouldn't really be dramatic enough. And so, he kept on asking her just to hold on and keep on playing. And the story goes that he was quite tight-fisted with money, and he didn't want to give back the ticket money for that performance. And so she played through the performance. And this is what's interesting about this is my great-grandparents also had movie theaters. And so from the 1900 up until today, my family is invested in this medium like you cannot believe. To me and to my whole family, that screen represents a social gathering the way the theater did earlier, the way storytellers did around the fire when they were traveling from city to city throughout the time, human time. These storytellers have a huge, important moral sort of like role. And I ask you, like, is there any place anymore where we talk in the way where we're listening? So when we're watching a movie as audiences, it is my experience that every single one of you are telling the story with us, because you're all bringing your own emotions and your own life stories to that story. So the way, say, you felt when you were watching the movie is different than the way you felt, because you're bringing in your story. And so you're part of the storytelling process. When you're all sitting together in a room and you're watching this big screen together, that's a communal experience. And that commune, I think, is incredibly important. I don't want to overstate, which I probably just did.
No, you didn't.
But I think the movie theater is kind of a little bit sacred, just the way theaters and, you know, grand concert halls are. I think that they're the place where we meet as a community.
Everything she just said needs to be heard and read by everyone about the importance of the movie-going experience. Bless your heart, I swear. So my question actually is not as cool as that one, so thank you for that. But so when you made the first Gladiator, obviously you were working with an actor like Russell Crowe, who just had that charisma, that gravitas to play Maximus. So obviously here we are 24 years later. This is a completely different story. So what was your first impression of working with Paul Mescal? Like, what was it about him that you felt like he had that gravitas to make this a worthy sequel?
You know, it's like throughout the entire process, people have asked me the comparison to, you know, Russell to Paul. And I just think it is such an interesting question. I have sort of refused to compare them, but I do think that there is something to be said about the thing that you said about gravitas. Because both of them have gravitas, but in entirely different ways. And so why these different ways? And I am here to testify that Paul Mescal is a powerful actor in a completely different way from Russell, because it's a different generation, and with this new generation of boys, and I have 5 boys, this is a new masculinity. It's a masculinity that celebrates itself without any recourse to, I don't know, like extremes in that sense. You know, Russell is a man for the ages because Russell has this masculinity that, I don't know, like revels in itself. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that Paul's masculinity is so different in its vibration because it's so at ease with itself. I don't think you can say a single thing about him that would shake his confidence in his who he is, and I don't think he would need his masculinity for it either. Does that make any sense?
Perfect sense.
So he is making these fight scenes, like even his behavior physically is different. He's using agility rather than like straight up brawn. Have you noticed that?
Yep.
He is using like this athleticism rather than sheer strength, you know, and he's using his mind and heart, you know. It's just, they're two side-by-side things, and they, in terms of value, they're equal, but they are so different also because culturally they're different.
That's a really great way to put it, and I think that sums up both these actors perfectly. So next question is virtually, it's coming from Yanni Nunkatz. So talking about your own emotions, which you just did very, very well, how did you use your experience as a mother for this emotional role? And by the way, congratulations on the new Miss Universe.
It was, I'm so sorry, my oldest son has just lost his dad. And one of the things about a mom is you can't stand your child being in pain. Like, what is the saying? You're only as happy as your least happy kid. I mean, it is the strongest emotion in me. It is the strongest emotion in me. Before I had my kids, I was one type of woman. The type of person that I am after my kids is a completely different person. It's indescribable, the feelings that you have for your child. And I think everyone in here knows that the saying that you would lay down in front of a bus for your child is true. It just is. How weird was that?
Wow. Couldn't have planned that any better.
So, I mean, when we were about to go and do that scene, me and Paul instinctively just kept this distance from each other because we knew that that first scene where we meet again, we knew that that was going to be like so moving. And we also wanted to keep it very pure. Like, we did not want to overload the machine. We didn't want it to be melodramatic. We wanted it to be emotional, not sentimental. And I think that I once read somewhere that, you know, the difference between sentimentality and emotionality is that sentimentality is regurgitated emotion. And that is really important when you're an actor. You can't sit there and have this feeling then regurgitate it, and then because then it becomes sentimental, and it's like you've overshot your goal. And so we did not talk about this. We were very, very cordial, but very sort of keeping our distance, because we knew that when I go into that scene, my narrative is I gave up the most important thing in my life so that he could live. His narrative is my mom abandoned me and she didn't love me. And like, we wanted to go in there and just be like having never spoken, like a mom and a son who have never spoken. And there you have this force coming from this position and this force coming from this position. And I think the scene itself was just so moving. And like, I mean, it was so hard for me to not like fall apart between each take because, you know, yeah.
Okay. Whew. All right. Thank you for this. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Next question is from Eliza. Eliza.
Elisa
Hi.
Leonelli
Oh,
from
Alicia,
Italy.
thank
How
you.
are you? How are you? I appreciate your attention to research because my favorite subject at university was Roman history.
Yeah.
And of course, I lived in Italy, so that was very important for us. And so Lucilla is a privileged woman from a patrician class, and the Roman and Greek society, women were, considered important. At the same time, though, she was subject to the rules of the patriarchy. And so I was wondering what kind of inspiration you hope that your character will offer to the women of today, particularly this week that has been so depressing for some of us.
So one of the things that I've thought a lot about as a woman and as Lucilla as well, I'll start with, you know, the first time I walked into a museum, first at the Metropolitan and then at British Museum, and also at the Carlsberg Glyptotek in Copenhagen, where they have a huge collection of Roman busts. And I went and I found Marcus Aurelius easily. I found Lucius Verus, his, adoptive brother and co-emperor. I found them easy. And Lucius Verus did not look very nice. And I knew that her father, though he was a philosopher, so to speak, and a very reasoned man, married his 16-year-old daughter off to a man whose preference, apparently, the rumor was not for women, and married his 16-year-old daughter to that co-emperor so that their co-emperorship would be peaceful. And I felt really angry for Lucilla. You know, there she is being used as a pawn. And that was what a woman was in Roman society. She just had absolutely no power. And so then that has gotten me thinking throughout my life that this whole power thing, we never talk about the actual meaning of power in our society. We never talk about what is the actual essence of it. How does it work? Who decides what power is? And I realized one thing, and that is we're just being sheep, because it doesn't matter what people say the power is, where people say that the power is allocated. Because we all know that essentially we can resist arrest. We can resist in so many ways, and every woman in this room has had the experience of resisting the power that is put upon them. They know. And so I've gone into a place now where I think of it, here's nominal power, and here's real power. And for me, Lucilla was a person who had to consistently exist under nominal power and having to simply ignore it and ignore even the strictures, the actual physical chains that they put on her, and to ignore it because she has to just know that in her heart is the truth, and the truth is the future, because sooner or later, lies, they lose power. They have more power in the beginning than the truth. In fact, we know that they travel 5 to 6 times faster on the internet. But ultimately, the truth does count, and the truth is the future. And you being from Italy, you know, I had this experience early in my career where I was doing like this TV series in Italy, and in one of the episodes, we're, you know, playing that I'm from this patrician family up in the northern Alps of Italy, and there are all these older female actors who I'm sitting with, waiting, and they're playing my aunts and grandmothers and all of this stuff, and they start talking about the time of Mussolini, and I just remember so well that they're sitting there, and with this regretful laughter, they're saying, "Can you believe how stupid we were? We took off our wedding rings and we threw them in the big," they were parading through the cities to get all of the gold for the war effort. And so, you know, all of the fascists were like taking off the rings. These were young mothers at the time. They were taking off the wedding rings and throwing it into this big black cauldron that they were parading through the cities. And they were laughing. "Can you believe how stupid we were? We threw our wedding rings into the cauldron." I've never forgotten that. I was this young 21-year-old, and it stuck with me. We all get like taken by these ideas, and I see them as a kind of virus. Like, you know, you get sick for a little while, and then you get back to normal. And so I think that's what Lucilla does, is she doesn't care about nominal power. She knows that her version of republicanism, which is different from probably the republicanism that lost out to the empire during Caesar's and the subsequent time right after the Civil War and so on, she knows that somewhere there is one truth only, and that is that every human is born free. It's that simple. And you know, the simplicity of that is going to last through the ages. I don't care what we're going to be doing, what kind of mess we're going to be making, but that is the truth.
Hear, hear. Absolutely. Yes. Okay, final question is from Lena Bass. Lena.
Yeah. Hi. Everything what you're telling us today is like music to my ears. So you're so powerful. Thank you very much. And because you appreciate research prior to the shooting the film so much, I would like to ask you, what surprised you the most about being a woman in old Rome? Because you are playing the only one woman among those powerful men also. So, and being a veteran, actually. But besides Derek Jacobi, I believe you are the only one who came back to the Gladiator II. So please tell us something. You're so good at it.
Well, I was going to say, I've been the only woman in almost every film except for Wonder Woman. So it's just part of working in Hollywood. It is an interesting thing to do that. It's like I can compare it to when, we were 50 women and 1 man on Wonder Woman. And, when we were down on the beach fighting, the husbands and boyfriends were up by the playground with the various kids of all of the Amazons. And it was kind of funny to see the mirror image. And there is a feeling of it being a skewed image, because the real relationships that would have been in Lucilla's world would have included more women, wouldn't it? And at the same time, women were banished from, any institution. That didn't stop them from probably leading most households. Anyone who's lived in Italy knows that the mamma is the ruler and the daddy is hanging on by a mere thread. So all of these nominal powers, again, I will say, all of the boys on this film are so wonderful. Like, you take Fred and Joseph and Paul, like, just wonderful. And it was great being with them. And like, as an older actor, also to tell them, advocate for yourself, advocate for your role. Just don't be afraid. Yes, he's an icon, but he's a human. You can go and talk to him. And they were so just lovely. And then, obviously, I also had the pleasure of doing scenes with another icon, like with Denzel Washington, who is just a powerhouse. Like, just his actual physical presence is electrifying. And so there's always like this great, if you just look at it as non-gendered, it doesn't matter, because then we're all just actors, right? And then I come from a long line of women who don't give up, and so I just keep on keeping on, and I focus on my work, and I focus on my character, and I fight for her. That's what I do in every film. I fight for my gal. Yeah.
Now that is what I call a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning for Gladiator II press conference, and Connie Nielsen for an amazing conversation. We're going to take a break, be back at 12:55 p.m. Pacific time with the man you just mentioned, the legend, Denzel Washington. So hang out, and we'll be back soon.
I had a feeling.
And here we go. We are back here with our press conference for Gladiator II, which opens Friday, actually Thursday night. Movies open on Thursday nights now. So even earlier than expected, I'm here with 2-time Oscar winner Denzel Washington, working again with Ridley Scott for the second time after 2007's American Gangster. So my first question for you.
My first question is, can you open this?
Oh, yes.
I got lotion on my hands. I can't turn it. I feel bad now.
Here you go.
I thought I was strong. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Working with Ridley again, how was it the same? How was it different?
How is it the same? Yeah, well, it's a different movie.
Right.
So the first maybe 2 or 3 weeks of the part I was in we were up in the stands, and the youngsters were down there trying to kill each other. So there was a lot of listening and just watching, and so that was different, you know, to just be an observer in a sense at first.
So a saying that a slogan that I first heard from you when you were doing interviews for Flight. If it ain't on the page,
it ain't on the stage.
It ain't on the stage.
I didn't make that up, though. That's some.
But I heard from you for the first time. So my question is, what was it about the page? What was it about the screenplay that you loved? What was your first take on the story?
Before the screenplay, it's the filmmaker. It's the filmmaker. Ridley called. He said, "This is what I'm doing." I didn't go, "Oh wait, I got to go read my part and I'll let you know." Yeah. It's all about the filmmaker. You know, I'm only interested, not only, but I'm interested in working with the best. He's one of the best. He called me up. He says, "This is what I want you to do. You want to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So to be honest with you, I don't remember if I read it first or if he called first, but I said yes. I would have said yes either way.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Ridley Scott, working
Yep.
with him again.
Yep.
What informed your approach to playing this guy? Because what I notice about him, I've seen the movie twice now, is that it's not, at least not until things really get going, that he doesn't want to be in control. He wants to control the people in control. Is that a fair assessment?
The power behind the throne is kept by any means necessary.
There you go. So what informed your approach to play him?
What do you mean when you say what informed?
Like
it?
what?
The
How did you get a feel for
play.
him? How did you build him?
Well, that's a long question because you start with page one. If it says exterior night, you go, what time of night? I'm serious. That's where you start. Whatever it says, that's where you start. Page one, exterior night. What night was it? No, I'm serious. You asked the question. I'm answering. What happened the day before? Why? Why is it night? What's he doing? Why is he there? Or if he's there? So one question leads to another. And, you know, a home doesn't start with windows. It doesn't even start with bricks. It starts with sand or whatever the materials are. It starts with a tree. It starts with a piece of land. It starts with a dream. It starts with an idea.
When it got to the point where the characters started to get really interesting.
That hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened yet.
No.
When did it happen for you?
It never happens. That's the point. You're always searching. If you found it, then you lost it.
What about when you go back and you watch the movie and you see your
go back.
performance? You never.
I watched the movie once, so I know what I'm talking about. But I really don't watch movies I've made. I've watched them once.
Did you like it?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Well, we are here taking questions from Golden Globe members and Critics' Choice members. Our first question comes from Brazil, Miriam Spritzer.
Oh, see, I
Golden
moved
Globe member.
First of all, thank you so much for moving the flowers. It was so important for us on audience left, stage right. So my question is, one thing that I noticed while watching the film is that this character, in addition to being very Machiavellical, it looks like you have such a great time playing it and enjoy being on set. And this is one of the biggest productions of probably of your career. There is a pressure on this film to be successful and whatnot. So I was wondering, how do you maintain this ability to enjoy and have fun while shooting, even with the pressure behind the size of the production?
No pressure on me. The movie wasn't called Macronus. It's called Gladiator. So to be honest with you, I didn't feel any pressure at all. I didn't feel any pressure at all.
Do you take any kind of, like when you're working with actors, like obviously Paul Mescal or, Pedro Pascal, Connie Nielsen, I mean, the actors playing the emperors,
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
They were great too.
They are great too.
I
they
love
really
Fred.
are.
He's a character. I'm sorry, go ahead.
When you like have an idea, like, when you're filming that day, and you're like, you remember your lines, you go in, you're like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing here. But then you go in and you're feeding off the actors that you're working with. How does that bring out something different from your performance?
Well, you don't walk in with a performance. I didn't know what you were going to ask.
Right,
so
sure.
I can't walk in prepared with answers. So I know, to a degree, you find out what your character wants. The script tells you how far he's willing to go to get it, but I have no idea what's going to happen. What if he better not have done it? But what if one of the emperors came right up and slapped me in the face right from the start.
Right.
It's a different movie.
That would have been a different movie for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean? You have to be open. You come in with your bag of stuff and see what happens.
Well, let's see what happens with our next question. Yun Sun Ha.
Hi. This movie is about the son discovered father, and it's like, in your real life, and your son just directed. Sons. And one of son also directorial debut piano lesson is explore the family history, I think. So what do you think about that, this young generation discovering the fathers and then that generation changing stuff?
It's inevitable. You have to get out of the way eventually, hopefully, prayerfully. My wife is the film, not maker in our family, but the film buff. Our children grew up watching movies because my wife loves movies. I didn't grow up watching movies. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be outside and run around and play games and stuff. So they got it on. She loves movies, and they do too. And so it was just natural, I think, that they all got in the business. I mean, they grew up in the business. Their friends, the schools they went to were in the business. And they studied different things, history, English, whatever else they all study. But they got it honest.
Okay, next question. Ana Riva.
Hi, here.
Where are you? Okay.
Hi, from Portugal.
Hey.
So usually these big productions and these stories have motivators that are power, revenge, greed, and sex. Sex is the one thing that this movie does not have. And so none of the characters seem to be motivated at all. Like that is not a part that is showed of their personal motivations. Was that something that you considered for your character at all?
What do you mean?
Well,
did I consider sex?
There's absolutely no other motivation other than revenge, and no one is a villain.
Whoa, wait a minute. Who said that?
Well, it doesn't seem to be.
Okay, that's different then.
Okay.
There isn't.
So how did you approach that motivation?
What motivation?
Of your character.
Let's start over. Ask me the question again. You talked about sex, right? You said what?
Yes, usually these characters have several motivations: sex, revenge, power, greed.
Okay, so sex wasn't one of my motivations.
Not at all. Yes.
Not one I thought about, but revenge, power, yes. Control, yes. Those are byproducts of
You didn't
power.
consider that revenge was one of his motivations?
No, I don't know. Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
now we're having a conversation here.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I apologize for that. Yeah, so.
So power is the main sort of motivation for the performance.
He wants it all. You fill in the blanks. He wants it all. He's willing to do whatever he can and will do whatever he can to get it all. So you fill in the blanks. All is all. That's what he wants. All of it.
Our next question is virtually. It is coming from Pat
You'd
Mullen.
be on the top of his list, too. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what I mean.
So Pat Mullen, who is joining us virtually here, has a question for you, Denzel. And is it more satisfying for you to play the hero, or is it more satisfying for you to play villain, baddie?
I don't know, because I don't look at it that way. Again, it's what a person wants, what their desires are. To know what they are going through, I have to look at what they've been through. We don't talk about what's happened. The screenplay doesn't talk about what happened to him, how he was exploited, how he was abused. And I'm not making excuses, but that's the actor's work. That's why they call it building a character. What did you do yesterday? If it says exterior night, what did you do the night before and every night before that? How did you get to where you are, and what were you willing to do to get there? And what did it cost you?
How much of the building did you do for this when it compared to building for other roles, other films that you've done?
At this point in my career, I'm working harder than I ever have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do my best work with the best directors. I think the best work I've ever done is actually ahead of me. I'm not pleased. So I look in the mirror and decide what I want, how I can be better physically. I've dropped 80 pounds in 2 years, 75 pounds. Wow. Put on about 15, 20 pounds of muscle because I didn't like what I saw. So I said, how can I bring less of me and consider the possibility of being the best of me? So now I'm only interested in the best, using all of what I have left. Oh.
Did you get the memo?
It's my trainer or it's my wife? It's the producer of the next play.
Good news?
I don't know. Brian, we're in the middle of a press conference. Say hi. This is Brian. Brian, he's producing Othello. Wait, speaking to the microphone. Say hi to everyone. Come see Othello on Broadway. Anything else you want to add? I'm trying to do my best.
This is the audience. This is the audience.
They said, when does it open?
February 24th.
Wait, that's the first preview, right? Or is that the opening?
Official opening night is March 23rd.
March 23rd, Othello.
And how much are the tickets?
Where to get them?
Well, there are tickets available.
Now, understand, we're talking to Critics' Choice and who else? Golden
Globes.
So you better.
But I have a different answer.
We'll talk about it later. I'm sure there's at least 40 tickets we can come up with. Huh?
Happy to have all of you.
All right. Love you, brothers.
Well, that was a first.
Maybe I should turn this off.
Or maybe you should keep it on.
Yeah, you got it on tape. He said all of you, right? Free tickets for everybody.
You talked about doing your best work, Denzel, and you talked about working with great directors. What makes Ridley Scott one of the greatest directors that you've worked with?
He's a master. You know, he's just a master. I mean, he's working with 10, 12, 15 cameras. The time to worry about flying is when you're on the ground. You know, I've said this before, if you don't trust the pilot, don't go. And he can fly. He can fly. He can fly a plane like no other in his own unique way. And, you know, going back to an earlier question, that's what I'm interested in, the best pilots, the greatest pilots, you know, that give me the opportunity to soar, I can sit in the cabin and build and create, and I know it's being taken care of up front. And if we crash together.
Well, you're a pilot yourself. You're a director yourself. So as a director, what did you pick up from working with Ridley Scott that you brought into the work that you've done?
It was depressing. There's such a gap. I mean, he's a master. There's a difference between making a film and being a filmmaker. I've made a couple of films. My son's a filmmaker. There's a difference. I'm learning what that difference is. Preparation, all of it, just the way he thinks, and both of them, the way they think and what their ideas and the way they go after it, and all of those things. I don't want to be in any other films that I direct, that's for sure, because you can't do both well. Sans, you know, Clint Eastwood, and I don't know who else was really good at doing both well, but.
All right, next question from Rocio Ayuso.
Yeah, hi, Rocio Ayuso from Spain.
Hi.
You were talking about your preparation for the movie. Start page 1, dark at night. But how is your preparation for what you are doing right now? I mean, for the promotional campaign of a movie. It's a hard part of the job too. I don't know how much you enjoyed it or not. It is a long part of the process. And I don't know what is your mental state, how many interviews did you do in one day? Could you talk a little bit about this part that is also crucial because people need to see your work and the movie?
You just answered the question.
But please.
people need to see.
I want
yeah,
to hear.
people, you know, that's my job. It's called show business. It should be called business show. No business, no next show.
Correct.
Now, I'm not doing this part for the next show, but you want people to see it. You need people to see it. It doesn't exist if no one saw it. So, and you know, just the well, the pressure, I guess, is more in the studio or maybe filmmaker that if you don't have a big hit, then you won't get another
Yeah, but your preparation, I mean...
It doesn't affect my
the
preparation.
mental-
I prepare for a film if it's $2 or $200 million. I prepare the same way. I give it all I have. Usually got to give more if it's $2.
Yeah, you definitely got to give.
Yeah, got to give more if it's $2. No question. In fact, they owe me a couple of dollars. A couple of them $2 movies I made.
Next question for Marlene.
Hi. You are probably aware that last Friday, a lot of people all over the world watched the fight on streaming, so the one-on-one fights are still very popular.
Talking about Tyson?
Yeah. So I was wondering, what is the fascination you think that, you know, the one-on-one fight where people really kind of hurt each other has remained popular? And do you think, had you lived in ancient Rome, would you have enjoyed going to the arena on a Saturday afternoon, or would you stayed home and write poetry or philosophy?
I've been boxing 25 years, so I love fighting, but the loser's not fed to the lions. So there's really no connection between what happened in Rome and fighting today. But I am a fighter, and I appreciate fighting. And Mike Tyson and the other fellow, they hugged each other at the end of their fight. That was not the case in Rome. You know, you did not go home. I don't know if I answered the question. What was the question?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a fascination, because, you know, tennis is also one-on-one, and nobody gets really hurt. I mean, hardly
Well,
ever.
boxing is the hurt business. That's what it's called. The late, great Butch Lewis was a close friend of mine, great boxing promoter. You can look him up. He called it the hurt business. And I don't know if it's well, it's not just a man thing, because in my gym, our boxing gym, we now have a young lady who's a champion. She just got back from South America Saturday, and she won the championship. And she's knocked a couple of dudes out in our gym, so she's tough. You know, I just love the sport. I love the competition, and I love watching it.
Thanks for the question. Okay, Yuki, take it away.
Hello.
Hi, Yuki.
Hi, how
Hi.
are you?
Good to see you.
So congratulations on this movie, and obviously this movie is creating a lot of buzz for award season, but you also have the other movie you produced, your son's movie. So what's the mood for the Washington household right now? And then also, I think you touched a little bit, but as a director/actor, how do you see your son's acting and directing skill and talent?
Ooh, that's a lot. All right, yeah, what was the first one? How do I?
Washington household
What's the mood in
excitement
the
right now.
household?
Wait, I'm sorry.
What's the mood in the household?
For two movies
with your
in,
family?
you know.
Nobody's there. Nobody lives there. Me and my wife, and she's like on the other side of the house, and I'm in my man cave, you know. There's nobody there. It's lonely. My daughter's home. My daughter Olivia's home. She loves me. She comes and gives me a hug, and then she leaves. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad. But it's about to be wonderful. Is it this week? When's Thanksgiving?
Next week.
Next week. It's going to be wonderful next week because everybody comes home.
What do you think your sons have taken from you as actors and directors now?
Man, I don't know. You know, as I said, my wife is the real film buff, so they grew up watching films. They grew up in this town, you know, so I remember John David loved seeing me on the stage and him wanting to get on stage. So they got it honest, you know. They went to college, they studied what they studied. They all went to great schools in Yale and University of Pennsylvania and Morehouse and Tisch. You know, we want what they want for themselves, and we want, and my wife has made sure that we have children that are respectful and disciplined, and you know, they're not too big for her to not go upside their head, still. But you know, she loves them, you know, like only a mother can, and vice versa.
That's wonderful. Okay, Juan, take it away. What's your question?
Hi,
Well,
Mr.
you
Jensen,
want-
How are you?
Good. Very.
First of all, congratulations for
Thank
the
you.
for performance. Talking about the movie that you've done in other countries like Mexico, you did Men on Fire with your great friend Ridley Scott. How was it for you being there in Mexico? Your memories working in another country?
I love Mexico. I always felt, you know, they wouldn't let me go out because they said it was so dangerous, but I didn't feel that. But you won't tell anybody, right? I went out anyway. I went everywhere. But I love Mexico City and the people and the food. Oof. Oof.
And working with Carmen Salinas, the late Carmen Salinas. Carmen Salinas?
Which one was she?
She was the kidnapper.
The kidnap? Oh, yeah, the lady.
Yeah,
yeah.
died.
I
She
didn't have
died.
that much to do with her.
She
It was
died.
20 years ago.
She died 3 years ago.
Huh?
She died 3 years ago.
Oh, she passed away?
Yeah, passed away.
Oh, okay.
That movie came out in April of 2004.
20
Man on
years,
Fire.
yeah,
Yep.
man.
You know, you worked with Ridley Scott now twice. You worked with Tony Scott
5 times.
5 times. It's, you know, like they're obviously very different stylistically. Like, what is your take on like what makes Ridley like a unique director versus what makes
Never
Tony?
compare. You don't compare the greats. I don't compare Spike to Ridley or Ridley to Tony. I just trust them and go with them. I don't go, oh, well, he gives me this, or then it's about me. Who cares what I think? You know, that's the ego. To
I
think,
care.
well, okay. Well, how can I help you? What do you need to know? I'm here to help.
You just
no,
answered
ask
my
the question.
question.
Well,
You
okay,
just
ask it
answered-
again. I'll answer it again with you in mind.
Okay.
Yes.
I love both.
None of
both
your business. No, go ahead. You love both directors. I know. It was so easy.
All right. Moving on to the next question there. Sorry, buddy. Miko. Miko.
Hello,
we already
Denzel.
got Miko, right?
Hi.
Hi.
This
Right
is
there.
Miko from Egypt.
Hi.
We love you there so much. 120 million people love you.
Thank you.
And it's nice to see you in an epic drama like this in the Roman Empire. But my question here to you, I want to talk about your fashion in the film. Your rings, your you know, everything. Did you have a hand in that, or
I had
were
10
the-
fingers in it. I always mispronounce her name. Yandy. The costume and props, and they just brought me stuff. You know, just jewelry and sandals and everything just looked like a Roman pimp. And I just loved it. I just started putting stuff. I couldn't put on enough rings. You know, going back to the script, that's one of the last things, what you put on. Now, you worked your way from the inside out. Now you work your way from the outside in. And you go, oh, no, I need 10. He needs more of everything because he wants more of everything.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anna Riva.
Hi, I am Virag from Hungary. And I'm happy that Brian called in because my question is about your experience in theater, so it's connecting to that. And I would like to ask you that when you know, how did you bring in your theater experience, your stage experience to when you prepared and when you portrayed this character?
Well, he's bigger than life. And hitting your T's makes you feel more Shakespearean. I got a loose tooth. I got to get fixed next week. Yeah, true story. I'm going to get all this done. Tooth is loose. It makes you feel that way, you know, saying that and this and politics, you know, things like that. You know, it's theatrical, but it's fun. You know, you work the words as well as the people around you.
All right. Henry, you're next.
Hey, Denzel.
Hey.
Bonjour. On behalf of most of us, I have to tell you, we'll be doing press conferences for this award campaign for weeks. You're probably the best one we've been talking to. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Always entertaining.
Oh, so you got my check. I'm just, you know, listen, I'll be 70 next month. There's just no pressure. I'm just having fun. You know, it's easier when the movie's good.
Okay,
I'm just having fun.
Let me ask you the question, because again, many of us have been talking to Malcolm and JD in the past few days or weeks for their movie. I asked both of them if one day they're going to work with Dad. And Malcolm said he's way too busy for the next few years to even entertain working with me. And
He said, I'm too busy, or he's too
You're
busy?
too busy.
Okay.
And JD said pretty much the same stuff yesterday. He said, well, maybe one day, but the man has to decide if he really wants to do something with us. Agree, not? Will you do something with them one day?
I'm lined up for about 6 years, if not 8.
Wow.
Talk with, I'm not talking out of turn, but I talk with Steve McQueen, talk with Ryan Coogler, doing Hannibal, Othello.
Othello?
Yeah,
March.
so I'm kind of lined up a little bit.
And you're definitely lined up for March when tickets
March.
go on sale for Othello.
In March? No, we previews start in February.
Previews start February.
Yeah, we open. We did the opening is March.
combine.
Yeah.
But you
No,
invited us.
previews start in February.
You invited us.
Not
You all
yet.
have it.
You can come in January when I'm in rehearsal. I don't care. Yeah.
All right, Lily, take it away.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Washington, sir. From Malcolm X to this and variety of many years of wonderful performances. And you're not pleased, and you're still working, and you're still searching. So actually, can you please tell us a little bit, what are you searching, and what really attracts you in your career right now?
Filmmaker.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Filmmaker. I think filmmaker. Othello is role, I guess. Hannibal is role. Whatever Ryan writes I'm going to do. Whatever Steve writes, I'm going to do. The desire to work with the best. Like I said, I think I said it today, the time to worry about flying is when you're on the ground. I got a lineup of great filmmakers that are interested in working with me and I with them, and had a great conversation. I'm not working with him, or he hasn't called me back yet about working with him. He's whatever he's doing, but we talked, had a great conversation with Paul Thomas Anderson. So I decided, I don't know, a couple of 3 years ago or during COVID, whatever it was, to reach out to these folks. So I called Paul, said, hey, I want to come by and talk, and, what are you doing? I love your movies. He's doing whatever he's doing, so I don't know if anything will come out of it, but that's what interests me in terms of movies, are great filmmakers.
So I want to ask you, Denzel.
Yes.
So talking about like your approach, your building character and so on, and like thinking about what happened the day before, what happened the night before, building character. But before you get to the stage, and because it starts on the page, how do you remember your lines?
You mean for a play?
For a play or a film?
Oh, film, it's called cut. It's called improvise, or whatever. Literally. A film, you're just working on one scene, and you're doing it 15, 20 times. Well, not so much with Ridley, because he's got 15 or 20 cameras.
Right.
So you may only get 1 or 2 takes. But he trains you to know that you're not going to get many takes. So you come in prepared. But it's usually 2 or 3 pages, that at most, that you have to remember. And if you don't, you cut around you, or you ad-lib, or,
Improvise.
Improvise. I was going to use another word, until you remember,
So,
and sometimes the mistakes, I think it was Miles Davis that said that the mistakes are the best part.
The mistakes are the best. Was there a mistake on Gladiator that you found out to be the best part of making it?
I don't look at it as a mistake. See, now, was that a mistake?
No.
No, it was just a reaction to something.
Right.
That might be what they use. I'm doing a scene and the light made noise, and I looked at it. Ooh, that's a mistake. They're like, man, the way you looked up at the light, we could tell. That's what happens. We could tell there was that was one of the greatest moments, and you knew. I was like, no, actually, the light just made noise, and I looked at it. Ultimately, film is a filmmaker's medium, because Ridley decides if that's what he's going to use. Spike decides if that's what he's going to use. Malcolm decides if that's what he's going to use.
So, first of all, happy early 70th birthday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's hear it. 70. Okay.
See, I can tell how old everybody is now. Some people didn't clap. Some people are like, you'll see.
So before we get to our last question, I
Yes.
just want to ask, because, you know, you brought it up about turning 70, like, how does what you look for in a film or look for in a role, how is it different now from, like, let's say, whatever, maybe 20, 30 years ago? Or is it?
Someone said, you learn, you earn, and you return. I'm in the return phase of life. So I'm returning what I've been blessed to get, not just monetarily, which I've always done, but in ideas or thoughts or testimony to my own experience or the lack thereof. And that's the good part for me. I'm a giver. I like helping people. I like giving. I like giving. I like seeing other people do well. I'm a very unselfish actor. I always have been. You know, I've been good in bad movies. That's no fun. I want everybody to be good, you know, and simple as that.
All right. Last question. Jana on camera.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Talking about returning, what was like the most reward part to be an actor, and an advice to give to someone who want to pursue a career in this business?
You know, be honest with yourself. Work hard. Get on stage. That's where you learn to act, not on film. You don't learn how to act on film. You learn to act on the stage. What was the other part you asked me? You said?
The most reward part to be an actor.
The most rewarding. I don't know. Making people happy. Taking life off their minds for a couple of hours. You know, I don't take what I do too seriously. Getting a chance to using my, I hate that word, platform, but using my opportunity to share what I've learned with others and to help others. That gives me the most satisfaction.
Could not think of a better way to bring this Gladiator II portion of our press conference to a close. Let's hear it for Denzel Washington, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
We will be right back with Michael Gracie as
Vote
we
for Pedro. What was that from? Vote for Pedro. That was on a shirt.
Oh, Napoleon
it?
Dynamite.
Vote for Pedro.
Vote for Pedro. And we'll be back soon with better man, so stick around, Denzel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.